We are getting a massive title update for College Football 26 tomorrow, August 6th on a Wednesday, which is kind of random. I feel like they don't normally do it on a Wednesday in the middle of the week, but here we are. I'm not complaining. Like I said, this is a huge update. I'm going to go over all of the big stuff here in this video, what you can expect in tomorrow's update. They released all of the notes and there's just a ton of good stuff in here. So let's hop into the gameplay updates. They have a ton of stuff regarding blocking in this game. So like the offensive line and run blocking, pass blocking, all of that. So there's just a ton of good stuff right here. So I probably won't mention every single detail because there's so much, but here is what you need to know. Blocking logic enhancements, improve recognition of stunts and loops across base, empty, and slide protections. So your offensive line should recognize stunts and loops better, I believe is what this is saying, and be able to effectively block it better. However, the next bullet point says base protection is less effective against stunts, reflecting its man-on-man nature. So if you're in base protection and the defense throws a stunt at you, it might not get picked up because like it says, it's a man-on-man nature, so the offensive line guy is blocking the defensive line guy right in front of him. So if they, overlap, loop, it might cause some issues. But overall, your O-line should recognize these better, and it should make more sense with what actually happens, according to these bullet points. And then lastly, blockers are better at identifying late blitzers and avoiding premature handoffs that lead to free rushers. This is one I saw a lot personally, and I felt like it was a reason why there was a bunch of free rushers just like this, like it said. So for example, if the defense throws a late blitz at you, an offensive lineman needs to pick up that blitz, right? But since it's a late blitz, they wouldn't think he was coming originally. So one offensive lineman would hand off a defensive guy to a different offensive lineman, but then that late blitzer would come in, and now that offensive lineman is trying to protect, trying to block two different guys, which in some ways is realistic. Like that's the point of a late blitzer, is to confuse the offensive line. But it was basically just not working, and it felt like it was a free rusher every time. Now, sometimes if they don't hand it off so early, hand off the other player, then hopefully it'll get picked up now. I don't know if I explained that well. I try to say it like super basic, but hopefully there's going to be less free rushers because the offensive line is actually blocking people now. Moving on, pocket behavior, tuning to decrease the likelihood of pass blockers staying in double teams unnecessarily. Also saw this one a lot. There'd be offensive linemen both blocking the same guy, like they're double teaming a guy when they don't need to, and then a free rusher, runs by. So hopefully that is addressed and fixed. Reduce the frequency of illegal man downfield penalties. Thank goodness. I felt like I had a ton of these, especially on screens, or if I extended the play, it would happen all the time, probably just too often. It was a little unrealistic. And then lastly, edge rushers now better recognize when they're being out leveraged by scrambling quarterbacks. So this is actually a change for the defensive side of the ball. Your edge rushers should now better recognize when a quarterback is about to, get out of the pocket and extend the play. Your edge rusher should recognize that better now. And then lastly, with the difficulty tuning, increase pass rush effectiveness on Heisman and All-American. So the pass rush is going to be harder now, meaning they'll get to your quarterback potentially more on Heisman and All-American, and then less on lower difficulties, like it says in the next bullet point. But overall, with the offensive line changes and then with the pass rush changes, hopefully it just makes more sense. Like it's more realistic. That's what I'm really hoping these changes bring in this title update. So all of that I just talked about was for pass blocking. Now let's talk about run blocking. Targeting fixes resolved issues where blockers missed or switched targets in open field, including on RPOs and core blocking schemes. Again, thank goodness. This was such a big issue. I would throw, an RPO out to the bubble screen. He would catch it, he would start running, and the receiver out there with him that is supposed to block the guy right in front of him would just run past him and then go to the safety and try to block that guy instead. And it's that obviously makes no sense. And then the guy that caught the ball immediately gets tackled. It probably won't be perfectly fixed, but hopefully this addresses that and fix some other blocking issues in open field. They also fixed bugs causing double teams to split too slowly, preventing blockers from reaching the second level. Kind of already mentioned this, but now it's talking about run blocking and in the open field. And then lead blocker logic and halfback targeting in under center formations have been improved to target the biggest threat in the open field. This will probably be really good on the goal line, or when you're under center in a short yardage down situation, and where the fullback or the lead blocker actually will go towards the closest defender instead of skipping him and going to, the second level. This time it'll actually pick up that dude right in front of your face. Now let's finish out the blocking section. I'll just hit on a few of these. Defenders with big ratings advantages now trigger super win animations correctly. This is when a defensive lineman is like clearly better than the offensive lineman. There's a super win animation where it's basically just like an emphatic and obvious win. They just might destroy the offensive lineman. And this only happens when it's like a big ratings gap. This is going to be triggered now correctly. I guess there were issues with it before. My guess it was happening when there wasn't a big rating advantage and it was still happening. That's most likely what was happening. This middle section is fantastic. They resolved multiple animation issues causing failure to match engagements, frozen players, etc. You can read through there. I mean, this was so obvious, dude. Like you would play the game, watch what's happening, maybe go into replay, and there's dudes just not blocking anybody. They're just not matching up like they're supposed to. They literally might be frozen, as it says. Players stuck and disengages. Like so many little things where the blocking just straight up wasn't working. I don't know how that gets into the final build of the game, but it was there. So I'm hoping this update basically fixes all of this. Dude, this is like a deep dive. There's so much information. So that basically covers all of the blocking. I didn't hit on literally every single thing because there's so much, but I'm just hoping the offensive line blocking and the blocking in the open field and everything is just a lot better after this title update. So now let's get into the coverage adjustments real quick. Again, won't hit on literally everything, but this first bullet point I have noticed a lot, so it's a good thing they're addressing it. It says hard flats behavior. Defenders now stay closer to the line and recognize swing routes as threats in the flat. Dude, this was such a big issue because I kept using it as an exploit. If I put a guy like in motion and he ran in the flat and just, stayed in the flat for an easy dump off, literally no defender would follow him, even if, they were supposed to be in the flat. And so they are adjusting this now to where the defense actually covers those swing routes. Again, it was an easy exploit, but it should be adjusted and fixed in this title update. This bullet point mentions improved defense against outside throws and motion-heavy offenses. I'm glad they are also addressing this, kind of going along with what I just said. If I had players like going in motion and running into the flat or maybe on a wheel route, they were open so much of the time, the defense just wasn't picking them up. So I'm thinking this is going to be addressed with this motion-heavy offenses. They won't be as OP because I swear, like every playbook, it feels like there's motion plays, and as there should be, and the defense just wasn't guarding it correctly. So I'm assuming this is going to be adjusted after this title update. These bullet points also mention a lot of deep threats and go routes and corners and safeties not picking them up correctly. But now after this title update, they should. It's just dependent on the coverage and the offensive formation. Some of the corners and safeties and the DBs overall just weren't picking up, slot receivers, the number 3 receiver, as you can read in these bullet points. And so now I think basically it's going to be maybe harder to throw it deep. That was another thing I did notice. It felt like if I just constantly ran 4 verts, eventually it was going to work, like 1 out of every 3 plays, which is all you need. So that should be, a little harder now after this title update. That was basically all the big stuff for gameplay. They also adjusted a lot of playbooks. You can read through it yourself. I mean, Wildcat and Flexbone plays, goal line set for UTSA, updated play call suggestions, a lot of stuff like that. So I'll put it on the screen. Definitely feel free to pause it and read it yourself. Moving into Dynasty mode, there's a bunch in here as well. I'm going to try to just hit on the important stuff. So they are adding 2 new awards, which are both available in the trophy room. The Sean Alexander Award, which is given to the best freshman of the year, and then the Jet Award, which is given to the best special teams returner. This one is cool. Now when you go to the transfer portal and you're looking at the players and who you want to get or who do you want to try to recruit, it will show their career wear and tear, which is super helpful because if they're super banged up, you might not want to recruit them, and it might help you decide who you want to recruit and who you don't. So that's a cool little change there. This one right here is nice. Updated skill groups for many archetypes to ensure they have access to every ability for their archetype. There are players who literally couldn't unlock certain abilities because of their skill groups. And so now it should be changed to, depending on their archetype, like if they're a specific wide receiver or a specific quarterback, whatever it is, they can now have the ability to unlock every single ability for that archetype based on their skill groups. They increased the speed and acceleration for safeties in recruit generation, especially for 3 and 4 star coverage specialists and hybrids. So you should see safeties are faster now in the game, especially if they are a higher star rating, 3 and 4. I guess maybe 5 stars as well. It doesn't specifically say that, but you get the point. They will now be faster. That was, I guess, an issue. These players were just too slow. This is a very big one. They increased the number of players in the transfer portal who start in the open status. So there are going to now be players in the portal, or more players in the portal, that you can actually recruit that haven't narrowed it down to their, their top 8. And this was actually like one of the big selling points for CFB 26, that the portal was going to be like way more wide open than 25. And from my experience, like, yeah, I definitely use the portal more, but I think that's because I lose so many players to the portal. So it definitely is more lively. But now there should be actually more players you can recruit because they are in the open stage, and so they won't already be down to, their top 8. They also updated teams, athletic facilities, and brand exposure my school grades. I'm excited about this one because I definitely think there were some that were probably inaccurate, and now they're updating them to be more realistic based on how they are in real life. Now, again, this is one of those things I don't understand why this wasn't, adjusted before the game was released, but here we are. So those were the big things for Dynasty mode. There's more in there, little small bugs and things that they fixed. Definitely go look at those, but it's just too much to fit all into this video. So we're going to move into Road to Glory. So when adding a school to your top schools list, you will now see if that school has offered you a scholarship, regardless of whether or not they are in your top 10. This is a nice adjustment because if you're considering adding, schools to your top list, it would be nice to know who has given you that scholarship. Fixed an issue where offers would be given or revoked when advancing to signing day. This is good as well because everything needs to be, set in stone when you advance to signing day. There shouldn't be any changes. That way you can make a decision on signing day. And then just a few other things: reduce the amount of wear and tear damage incurred from training. They added new sponsorship deals to be earned via NIL. They fixed an issue allowing you to spend energy points on leadership and brand even when the meters were already full, so you're not going to waste your points now. And then fixed an issue where your current school appeared as one of the schools you could transfer to. Obviously, you can't transfer to the school you're already at, so that is adjusted. There's a few other things as well, but those were some of the big ones. There are a ton of Ultimate Team changes. I'm not going to get into those. As I've said before, we don't care about Ultimate Team on this channel, but if you do care about Ultimate Team, I'll have the patch notes listed below in the description, so definitely check them out yourself. All right, moving into presentation, let's hit on these bullet points real quick. They adjusted neck length and helmet fitment on all players, so that's good. Hopefully the player models around the neck and the helmet look better. They adjusted hair helmet on placement for players with longer hair. Thank goodness as well for this one. Yeah, most people probably saw the pictures or saw it in the game with the dreads literally going through the helmet, like just glitching through the helmet, which is just, sloppy and kind of stupid. So that should be fixed. New alternate uniform elements for Ohio, Notre Dame, Boston College, Tennessee, Tulane, Tulsa, Iowa State, Mississippi State, and Cincinnati. There are new or added home and or away sets elements for Washington, Liberty, West Virginia, Toledo, Georgia Tech, Houston, Tulane, Western Michigan, New Mexico State, Temple, and Cincinnati. And then adjusted current uniform assets for Central Michigan, which was the helmet, North Carolina, the numbers, and Marshall, the collar. And I'm pretty sure that is the one I think Marshall, I could be mistaken, but I think I saw this where Marshall had the Duke logo, the little devil on the collar. So that should be fixed now. And these Tennessee jerseys you are looking at are new. They just released these in real life like a couple weeks ago, and they look pretty fire. We got some new mascots, so that's pretty cool. You can see James Madison's Duke dog. Their mascot is now in the game. We got the Memphis mascot, UTEP mascot, Virginia mascot, and App State mascot. So all of those should now be in the game. We got some crowd updates, which is cool. Increased crowd reactions to big moments. So when you throw a big pass or big run or touchdown or whatever, interception, hopefully the crowd now reacts appropriately and has a bigger, reaction to it. Skipping down to the new crowd themes for the following schools. This is pretty cool. So new crowd themes included in this update are exclusive to which schools you were playing against and the time of year. So it's going to be realistic. It's going to be based on the time of the year and the actual school, but you can see that big list there. And there's going to be, different color themes and different color coding, like some of the obvious things are like the Tennessee checkerboard, but different things like that happen in real life should now be in the game. Obviously, a lot of them already are, like the Tennessee, checkerboard, but now there's more stuff in the game. You can read all the schools: Akron, Utah State, Louisville, etc. There's a ton of them listed. We got some commentary and music updates. So they added all of these songs right here. The Oregon football theme. They added Mr. Brightside to Missouri. Added All Hail Washington State, post-Washington State touchdowns, added music to the Vols chant at Tennessee, added Pump It Up to Michigan after PAT on first touchdown, update to Good Old Song for Virginia, added more chants for Arizona, and added sound effects for Missouri State Cannon. So just so many little things there that are so specific to a specific school. But, you know, as they say, like every school is somebody's favorite school, or every team is somebody's favorite team. If you're a fan of these teams, you're going to appreciate these little changes. Lastly, commentary updates, fixes for fair catch inconsistency, fixes around PAT follow-ups, adjustments to commentary banter frequency, and adjustments to commentary intros around ranked games. So hopefully the commentary is just better. I was honestly pretty disappointed with it last year, and then this year I think it's definitely better. And that was one of the first things I actually noticed, was that there are some better, things that they recorded, or more enthusiasm in certain parts. But overall, it's still, I don't know, just lacking. I think eventually they're going to use AI to make it a lot better. But for now, this is the update we have. Huge update. I don't know, what is this, like a 15, 16-minute video? I mean, this was like a whole freaking deep dive, basically. So hopefully this wasn't too long or too boring, but thank you for watching. Subscribe and follow me on all socials at TubbyCFB.